Welcome to another episode of GeekOutdoors.com. Today, I finally had some time to actually explore Kubuntu. Should be Kubuntu 16.04. And if you haven't seen my previous episode where I installed Kubuntu over this old Toshiba laptop, which originally had Windows 8, and then Windows 10, and then Linux Mint 18, and now Kubuntu. And the reason why I wanted to try this is because before, a long while back, I used to use Kubuntu before, primarily because of the KDE desktop environment. Now, if you're new to Linux, one of the main things, the most powerful things that you can do in Linux is that with time and with the proper skills and knowledge, you could actually pretty much change almost anything that you want on your operating system. And the thing that most people change and are familiar with is actually the GUI interface. Okay, so that's what you're using day to day, what you see. And so in Linux, you could actually change your entire desktop environment, meaning the way it looks and also the way it functions. Now, the two most popular desktop environments are GNOME, and also here, this is KDE. And in my opinion, KDE has always been the prettier version. If you want to use Linux and you wanted a really beautiful user experience. And then GNOME, it's more for people who just wants to get things done. It's a lot more efficient. It's faster. It requires less resources. However, it doesn't win any awards when it comes to beauty. So now that I've had a little bit of time to use Kubuntu, let me talk about the things that I like and the things that I don't like. So if you aren't aware, Kubuntu is a KDE version of Ubuntu. Now, the KDE version of Linux Mint, Linux Mint is the primary version of Linux that I use. There is a KDE version. However, that version is based upon, the older version of the Linux kernel. One of the things that Linux Mint has is stability. That's why I love Linux Mint. However, one of the drawbacks is that you are usually using an older version of the Linux kernel and some older programs as well. However, with this one, you are getting pretty much the latest version of the kernel, at least the stable version that is available in Ubuntu. So let's go ahead and start with the things that I do like about Kubuntu. First and foremost is the look. I mean, Kubuntu is really, to me, a very beautiful operating system. Okay, everything looks really clean. They're also the colors, they all look really pleasing to the eyes, and they have these nice little effects, like the fading and so forth, and the pop-ups, and as many people who, use any operating system, a lot of times we don't really think about those little things, in terms of design and the user interface, and that is a whole nother area, the design, UX, interfaces. That is really a skill set, a very important skill set in and of itself. And in KDE, it just looks so much prettier. For lack of a better word. And when you're using this versus something like Linux Mint, Linux Mint, at least the version I use the Cinnamon version, which I'm positive that is GNOME based underneath. It's not the prettiest one in the world, and if anything, it's really old looking. It looks more like an older version of Windows Vista, whereas Kubuntu, it looks more like a version of Windows 7. Okay, if you had to compare in terms of looks, it looks more like Windows 7, even when it comes down to things such as the widgets. This is very Windows 7S. Okay, however, in my opinion, in the Linux world, I really feel like KDE, this desktop environment, it's more for people who like, using the Apple Mac operating system. I mean, although they don't look exactly the same, like I said, this one looks more like Windows 7. It does have a lot more, emphasis on design. Okay, so if you're the type of person who really enjoys the look of your operating system in Linux, I really prefer the KDE desktop environment versus GNOME when it comes to look. Okay, so that's one thing that I like about it. Another thing that I do like is the actual Dolphin Explorer. Okay, now if you're not aware, whenever you are opening up your folder or My Computer or anything else, this is an Explorer. Okay, I'm not sure how to explain it, but in Linux, there's different explorers that are used to show your information. Okay, and the one that is used primarily in Linux Mint is a version of Nemo. Okay, and this one uses Dolphin. Now Dolphin, I find that it's easier to use in terms of additional features. Like right here, I just did a split, and I'm able to look at two different windows at the same time, and you can do that in using the Linux Mint or the Nemo Explorer as well. However, it's just much easier here to do than it is in Linux Mint. Okay, and you could close this out, and you could change the views a lot quicker too right here. So some of that functionality, it is a lot easier. You see it right there. And also, like I said, the ease of use with this Explorer, everything makes sense where it's at. Okay, so that I definitely do like. And there's even like a preview function also if you wanted to make things a little bit bigger, and also like if you had pictures and so forth or videos, it makes it a lot easier to see as well. And also the history function, a lot easier for you to sort the type of files that you have on here. And you can also search by different file types here as well. So the Dolphin File Explorer, it's a really, really nice file explorer. I find it very easy to use. It's extremely functional, and it's one of the definitely my preferred file explorer if I had to choose between the two. Now, moving on to another thing I like, and this one's kind of a mixed bag, and I'll get to it whenever I talk about the things that I don't like. And if you go to your system and you go to your software center, one of the things that really bugs me about Linux Mint is the fact that the software center, it's extremely slow. Okay, and you definitely have to wait in order for your software center to come up, and I don't know why that's still a problem in Linux Mint. However, in Kubuntu, your software center comes up really, really quick. I didn't have to put in a password, and I didn't have to wait for almost a minute for it to come up. So that's one thing that I like. And another thing that I like in Kubuntu Software Center is everything is, I guess, organized a lot easier for people who are new. So it's like very GUI based, okay, in terms of like big icons and categorization. Things are, I would say, a little bit easier, but there are some drawbacks to this software center, and I'll get to that in a moment. And there are some bugs like that where the words kind of mangle together when it's off in the background. And this one is a lot simpler, I would say, versus the software center in Linux Mint. And also, you could easily see all your programs installed just by clicking right here. And you can easily remove programs through here. And I think that is easier for people who are new to Linux. I just think that's a lot easier way to handle the programs that you have installed. So that's a nice feature. Okay, and moving on. Another thing that I like is, I like the widgets. Okay, I know that might not sound like much, but this has a better assortment of widgets, and they are also a lot cleaner and a lot more professional looking than you would get in Linux Mint. So that I do like. So overall, those are the main things that I like about Kubuntu. Okay, it is a very beautiful operating system. I love the File Explorer. The Software Center is a lot easier to use, and just the overall, user experience from just a usability point of view, everything, it does make sense. Okay, and it is nice and clean. Okay, so it really has to do with the look for me. And moving on to some things that I like versus the older versions of Kubuntu, I do think that this version, this most recent one, it is faster than the previous version of Kubuntu that I use. And, it's been a while since I have used Kubuntu, but KDE is more resource intensive. And so it's nice that this one works faster than it did in previous versions of Kubuntu. Now let's move on to the things that I don't like. So one of the things that I mentioned right at the beginning is how much I love this user interface. Okay, and then also some of the usability that you have specifically in the File Explorer and also managing your software. However, other aspects of this UI I really don't like, and these things can be changed. However, I'm just talking about default installing it, whatever you get right out of the box. One of the things that I don't like this launcher menu. Okay, it's very, I would say, it's very cumbersome in the sense that you have to do a lot of clicking to get to the things that you want. I prefer the old previous method where it's just all your programs in one shot. Windows has that, and more specifically Linux Mint uses that. And this one, you just have to do a lot of clicking, which I don't like, and you have to move your mouse around to a lot of places. I just prefer one single list. And you can change this, but I'm just talking about whatever's installed by default. Another thing that is kind of annoying is that in terms of the software that's installed, they don't install a lot of programs by default as they do in Linux Mint. That's why I love Linux Mint so much, because they install all the programs already for you that you would use. Like GIMP, that's already installed. They've installed VLC Media Player, that's already installed. There's partitioning utilities, formatting utilities. There's just so much software that's already pre-installed, and it's software that you would actually use on a regular basis. And this one, it does provide some of the main ones. There's a PDF viewer right here. LibreOffice is installed. And there's also a scanning software and also image viewer, Gwenview right here. And in terms of internet software, honestly, the only one I really care about is my browser. There are other internet-related software here as well. So let's move on. Multimedia, pretty much just your basics. The only thing that I added was Simple Screen Recorder, so I could do this particular episode. But there's a disc burning software, audio player, media player, and there's a video player as well, this Dragon player. And like I said, Office, it's primarily LibreOffice. There is a Kmail as well. I prefer Thunderbird. If you go into settings, it's just system settings is right here. This part, you don't really need to mess with. I just go to system settings for all of that. And then your system, the terminal and system monitor, it's in here, I probably would prefer the terminal to be here somewhere, but like I said, it's easy for you to change that. And then there are utilities. Okay, so the only utility that I really care about here is just the text editor and the calculator, and the screen capture is nice as well. But in Kubuntu, things are very bare bones. Okay, so you're gonna have to go out and get all your other software, and that's going to require more time. And for somebody who's just brand new to Linux, I much rather prefer how Linux Mint does it, where they provide a lot of software, but it's software that really makes sense. Okay? So moving on to other things that I don't really enjoy that much, that I don't like, let's go back to the software manager that I talked about a little bit earlier. Now, I did like the fact that it's easy to use. Okay, it's very simple. It has a nicer interface. However, some of the things that I don't like is it's so simple that they don't provide you with a lot of software. Okay, like if you go to the Linux Mint Software Center, they provide you with a lot of software. Okay, in this case, the list of software that's available to you, it's nowhere near as much as what's available in Linux Mint. Okay, so which is disappointing. I would hope they would provide everything, and even though it's got a nice screenshot and so forth, there's just not a lot of software that's available here. Another thing is the search functionality. I'm not sure what's going on here, but if I typed in a software, I press enter, nothing shows up. Okay, but you could find that same software, if you actually went into the different categories. See, it's right there. And even if I typed it in, it should automatically come up. See, 0 items, it's right there, but that's for best rating. So that's really confusing why that would be the case. So that makes the search tool almost useless. Okay, so if I want to look for cheese, which is the webcam software, it's not there. But if I go to multimedia, cheese should be in here somewhere. I remember seeing it. But you get the idea. A lot of things that you think would be basic, it's not in there, like functionality wise. So and some of the software that's available in the Linux Mint Software Center, it's really not available here. Like Simple Screen Recorder, it's not. There's cheese, there's no screenshot. Like Simple Screen Recorder, I couldn't find it in here. So there is some benefits to having this nice clean interface. However, there's a lot of drawback in the sense that search functionality doesn't work. And more importantly, your selection of software is really limited compared to Linux Mint. Okay? And another thing that I had a problem with, and I'm not sure if this has to do with Kubuntu, but I had problems getting my audio recording to work with Simple Screen Recorder. The quality just wasn't as good. And then in Linux Mint, I just plugged it in and it worked just fine. And so that's kind of odd itself. And then other things, and this is more aesthetics, looks, is they don't give you any wallpapers besides this one. You could go and get new wallpapers, but I like how Linux Mint does it, where they provide you a lot of wallpapers to use right away. Okay? And going back to the File Explorer, I really do love the way Dolphin works. I do prefer it over Nemo. However, one thing that it has is that by default, it has a one-click solution. Okay, meaning that typically if you are on your computer, right, normally it's double click, but in this case it's single click. Okay, so that is the default and you can't change that. But that becomes a problem when I just want to move a file or something. You accidentally start the file, or it functions like a double click even though it's a single click, and that is annoying to me. I wish they didn't have that one click feature by default. I wish it was double click. Okay, so that is pretty much my overall review of Kubuntu. So overall, I do like definitely the look of this operating system. I do enjoy some of the functionality. Okay, some of it is nice. And also everything is more cohesive when it comes to the look. Okay, but the things that I don't like is it doesn't offer you a lot of software right at the beginning, so you're going to have to go in and look for those or install them. And also the Software Center, although it's very easy to use, it's very limited, and also the search functionality doesn't work. And so there's a lot more to it, to Kubuntu, than that, but I think those are the main points, because those are the things that people are going to be using every day, and that's the things that I think of when I am using an operating system. Whereas in Linux Mint, right out of the bat, as soon as I install it, it's pretty much ready to go. I don't have to really change much, and everything that I need is there already. And it's also, I would say, one minor thing, and you won't really notice this if you are only using Kubuntu and you've never used any other Linux distribution like Linux Mint, and especially the Cinnamon version or the XFCE version or Mate. This is not as fast as Linux Mint, and obviously this is prettier, so it does require more resources, but it's also how it works underneath. And so I do want to make that point that Linux Mint is a better performing operating system, and it is also more stable. I've had a few times where things would just crash or freeze, and yeah, that's something that is not a good user experience, I think, for people who are new to Linux. However, it didn't happen very often. Okay, I do a lot of things in Linux, like in terms of testing, and I was trying a lot of different windows. I had my media player running, and so that's probably not something that most normal users should do, but I was testing it, and it did have problems with it at that point. And so overall, Kubuntu, it is a very good, solid version of Linux. I do definitely, like I said, I keep going back to the look, the look and the feel. It is really a beautiful looking operating system. And let's just remember, all of these operating systems, all the software that's produced in Linux, more than 99, I would say like 99% of them, they're done for free by the open source community. And so I don't want to take anything that away from them, And overall, I do not think that Kubuntu is an operating system in terms of Linux distros that I would use as my main operating system. So I'm going to stick with Linux Mint, specifically the Cinnamon version. I do like my operating system fast, stable, and efficient. And more than likely, since now that I have got some exposure to this newest version of KDE or the Plasma, I probably might try Linux Mint KDE because I do like the look. So that is basically my review and thoughts on Kubuntu 16.04. If you had any thoughts on this version of Linux or any other distro that you're using, be sure to leave them in the comments area below. And if you found value in these videos, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and don't forget, I am on Snapchat at Geek Outdoors. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for checking out this episode. And as always, if you like these videos, be sure to click on the subscribe button. And for full written content, audio content, and additional geek stuff, head over to geekoutdoors.com. And I'll see you outdoors on the very next episode.